Welcome to LIVEDAF, your online Daf Yomi Shiur.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, Shabbos Daf Nun Daled. We're right on top of the Amid. Says the Gemara, Harachelim, female sheep, yoitzois kivulois, may go on into Shesarabim when they are kivulois, which the Gemara soon will explain. We'll move our discussion regarding Shvisas Behemte, the mitzvah of an owner to ensure that his animal refrains from doing Malacha on Shabbos, including carrying a load in Shesarabim. Now, just as a person may wear his clothing, which are considered to be batal, subordinate to the person, and are not viewed as a master, as a load, similarly regarding a behemah, he may wear certain gear which are necessary for the animal, and are not viewed as a load. The Gemara will continue providing some examples. Harachelim, female sheep, yoitzeis kivulois, go out in a state of kivulois. My kivulois, what does this mean? Shemekablen aliyah shen lamata, they tie down their tail, kadesh lo yalu aleim scharim, so the scharim don't mount them. So this is meant to prevent mating. My mashma, what do we find? Dahai kaval lishna d'le'avet periu. Where do we find that this word kaval refers to lack of production? The chsiv, as it says in the pasuk, this is describing the 20 cities that Shlomo HaMelech granted to the king Hiram in exchange for him providing materials for the building of Beis HaMikdash. And Hiram said, Ma ha'arim ha'ela, what are these cities? Asher nasata li achi, vayikru lahem eretz kaval ad hayom hazeh. So refer to these cities as eretz kaval. Says, well, what does he mean by eretz kaval? My eretz kaval. Amar Rav Huna, shayu b'bnei adam, because these cities were inhabited by people shemekubalan b'kasav zav, who were tied up and wrapped in their gold and silver. They're wealthy people. Amalei Rava, if that is the definition of eretz kaval, why was he complaining? Ihachi, hainu dechsiv v'lo yosher be'einav, that they didn't find favor in his eyes. He didn't appreciate these cities on account of these inhabitants that were wealthy. What's wrong? Why was he complaining? Because they're wrapped up with gold and silver and wealthy. They didn't find favor in his eyes. Amar Rav Huna responded, yes, yes. Given the hatiri, since they were wealthy, and they were finicky and spoiled, they weren't ready to perform the king's service, weren't ready to work. Therefore, they didn't find favor in his eyes. So indeed, here we see the term kabul used in the context of being tied up and unproductive. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Amar, the reason why he wasn't pleased with the cities was on account of a different reason. Eretz Chaimton Haisa, it was the land of Chaimton. Rashi says, this is the fourth line from the top, Chaimton, says Rashi, Malecha, salty earth, Umizbakas, all cracked up and not fit for agriculture. So why this term kaval? How does it denote this type of earth? Says the Gemara, that the foot sinks into this type of earth, ad kaval, until its ankle. So the kaval is referring to the ankle, and that's why he called it eretz kaval. So this is one reason. Another reason is va'amri inshi, such as the common saying goes, ara mekabla, a land which is tied up, the lo yavet peri, which does not produce any crop. So this second pshat relates to our Mishnah. Kaval is referring to being tied up and unproductive. So once again, rechelim yoitzis kvulois means their tails are tied down so that they don't reproduce. And as we find in the pasuk in Malachim, how the term kaval refers to being tied up and unproductive. Continues the Gemara. So the recheles can go out kvulois and also kvunois. Says the Gemara, what does it mean that they go out kvunois? My kvunois. Says the Gemara, shemekavinen oisen lemelas, that they wrap up the sheep when they're young. When they're born, they wrap it up so that they ensure the cleanliness of its wool. To save the wool, to keep it lemelas, to use it for making high quality material. Kedesnan, as we find in the Mishnah. Ace. This is one of the four, one of the Nigoyim. Kitsemer Lavan, the shade of white, is equal to the whiteness of Semer Lavan, of white wool. Says one might summer lovan. What exactly are we referring to? Which type of white wool? Omar Rabbi. It's referring to this wool, Ketsemer Noki, clean wool, Ben Yoimai, of a 1-day-old sheep, Shemakavan and Oisei Lemelas. So as soon as he's born, they immediately wrap it up and keep it clean, prevent it from getting soiled, so they can use it Lemelas to produce from it high quality wool material. So referring to the whiteness of this sheep, which is Ben Yoimai, newborn sheep, that is the whiteness which the Mishnah is referring to, Se'is, is Kitsemer Lovan. Continues the Gemara. V'izim yoytei tzruis, goats may go out with a pouch tied onto their udders. And we have 3 shittas in our Mishnah. According to the Tanakama, this is allowed. It's not considered to be a load. According to Rabbi Yosi, it's considered to be a masa, you're not allowed. According to Rabbi Yehuda, depends. Depends why they tie the pouch. They should do it for 2 different reasons. One was to drive the milk, to stop the production of milk, and that's allowed according to Rabbi Yehuda, because that's coming to aid and benefit and serve the animal. Rashi explained to us earlier that it helps it strengthens the animal, whereas the pouch which was tied li cholev, merely to collect dripping milk, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's considered to be a load and is asur. So whose opinion does the halacha follow? Itma we learned. Rabbi Amar halacha Rabbi Yehuda. The halacha follows Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that we may only have this pouch tied on the udders in Rishus Rabbim if it is there for the sake of liyavish, to drive the milk. Ushmola mahalach Rabbi Yosi. We follow the shita of Yosi, who prohibits in any account, whether it's there liyavish or lechalev, the pouch on these udders is considered to be a masui. Some would relate these 2 views of Rav Shmuel as an independent entity, not referring back to the Mishnah. Rav holds the pouch which is tied on to drive the milk is mutter, but not one that's there to collect the milk. In either way, it's asur. So we have 2 versions. Now comes the 3rd version. Some presented the sheet of Rav Shmuel, not on the Mishnah, and not as an independent statement, but rather it was referring to a brisa. The brisa says, "Izim yoytzeis tzruis liyavish." Goats go out in Rishus Rabbim with their udders tied up liyavish when it's there to drive the milk, but not to collect the dripping milk. So this is the shita of the Tanakam. Mishum Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira Amru. Kach indeed. Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira was quoted as saying, yes, this is meant to be the halacha that we differentiate between the pouch that's there, liyabesh, which is allowed, and lichalev, which is not allowed. So that's what it's meant to be. Avo, but I have a problem with that. Me mephis, who is going to cast a lottery to figure out eze liyabesh, eze lichalev? Who's going to be there and discern and differentiate and recognize which pouch is for the purpose of drying up, which is allowed, which one is there simply to collect the dripping milk and is asur. Since it's not really discernible, I disallow both. Both of them are asur on account of the possibility that one will confuse the 2. He'll say, well, I see a pouch on a goat, apparently it's mutter, and he'll go and do it even when the purpose is to collect milk, which is asur. So in principle, Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira agrees to Tanakama that if the pouch is tied up for the purpose of drying up the milk, it's mutter. However, he prohibits on account of exera that one may do it one may come to do it even when the purpose is lechalev, to collect the milk. Continues the Gemara. Amar Shmuel. V'amrila, and some say Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel halach Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira, that Shmuel rules according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira that in both cases is asur. That's what Jesus points out. Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira is discussing a case where in this locale they do it for both reasons. They do it liyabish and they do it lechalev. Therefore, there's a real possibility that one may confuse the 2. However, in a place where they only do it for the sake of liyabish, it would be mutter according to Rabbi Meseira, because there's no concern of exera here. There's no concern that one may do it lechalev. Continues the Gemara. Ki asa Rabbi Amar Yechon halacha Tanakama, that yes, indeed, one may tie the pouch if it is if the purpose is liyabish. Now, Tzayis has a girsa here that Omar Rav as well halakha tanakama. So before the words Omar Shmuel, v'amrilo Omar Yehuda Shmuel halakha Yehuda Meseira, we have the words Omar Rav halakha tanakama, and indeed we find a presentation of Rav Shita, which is to rule according to the Tanakama, that leyabish is mutter, and we have Shmuel who says in either case it's usher in accordance with the Shita of Yehuda Meseira. So this is what the Gemara meant before, that we have a presentation of Rav and Shmuel's opinion based on this brisa, referring to this brisa. So in summary, we learned about the rechelim, the female sheep, which are kvulos. The Gemara explained that to mean that their aliyahs, their tails, are tied downward, and we find that the lashon, the term kabel, refers to being tied up and unproductive. The rechelim may go out to rabim kvunos, when they are wrapped up, when their wool is wrapped up, to ensure their cleanliness, to prevent soiling. The Gemara proceeded with the halacha of the izim, the goats which go out with their udders, tzurois, with a pouch attached and tied to their udders, and the Gemara differentiated between liyabish and leichalev, whether it's there for the sake of drying the milk, ceasing the production of milk, or whether it's merely there leichalev to collect the dripping milk. And we have 4 shittas actually. Tanakama in our Mishnah allows in all circumstances. Rabbi Yossi prohibits. Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah says, if the purpose is liyabish, it's mutter. If it's there leichalev, it's considered to be masi and asr. In the Brayso we have an additional shitta of Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira, who says, well, in either case it's asr. In principle, I really agree that liyabish should be mutter, but I'm concerned, I'm making gzera, that perhaps if you allow liyabish, one will go ahead and even do it leichalev, and therefore in all cases it's asr. Continues the Gemara. So we're going to have a list of different types of items which the behemoth cannot wear in Rosh Hashanah. Now, what is the reason for that? So Rashi explains. This is the first Rashi in the Mishnah, approximately 25 lines from the top. So Rashi, at the end of the Rashi says, "V'taimo de masnissen." What is the reason for our Mishnah? Why are these things asur? Mishum shema tipa, because perhaps they might fall down, they might slip off of the animal. Umaisi lahu, and the owner will be tempted to pick it up, lift it, and carry it in Shusarabim. So all these items which aren't really so securely fastened and carry a possibility of them slipping off and the owner being tempted to carry them, the Chachamim disallowed. Says the Mishnah, Ba'meh ina yoytze. What are examples of things that the behemoth cannot wear on Shusarabim? Lo yoytze gamal b'metuteles. A gamal, a camel, should not go out wearing this metuteles, a cushion, a tail cushion placed underneath between the tail strap and the tail to prevent friction. Lo yakoid v'lo rogel. He cannot go out akud or rogel. The Gemara will explain what this means: bound or hobbled. V'chein sharkal behemoths. This refers to other behemoths as well, not only a gamal, a camel. V'lo yikshar gemalim zeh b'zeh. He shouldn't tie up camels to each other. Shouldn't tie up one camel to the next, v'yimshech, and lead them in that manner when they're all following each other. The Gemara explaining the reason for this. Avo machnes, but he may machnes chavalim techyod v'yimshech. He can take individual reins, ropes, a bunch of individually reined animals, gmalim, if they're not tied to each other, not connected to each other. So he takes all these chavalim, the ropes of the reins, puts it in his hands, v'yimshech, and leads the animals, the camels, in that manner. Provided that he doesn't wrap the ropes around his hand. The Gemara will explain the reason for all these things. So we have the metuteles, the cushion. We have lo akud v'lo rogel. We have lo yikshur gmalim zeh b'zeh. And finally, although he may place the individual ropes into his hands, make sure that he doesn't wrap them. Tana, we learned in the Brayso, lo yetze hagamal b'metuteles. He should not go out wearing this metuteles akshur biznavei, that is merely tied to his tail, because it may slip off. Avo yoytze b'metuteles akshur biznavei u'b'chatrasei. But he may go out wearing this cushion if it is firmly fastened, is tied to his tail and also to his hump. There's no concern in that case that will slip off, and therefore it's mutter. Omar Rabbi Barafuna, I'll give you another example where it's mutter. Yoitzi agama b'miltul teles ha'akshurla b'shil yasa. If it's tied to its placenta, and there too there's no concern that he'll try to slip it off because it will cause him pain. So in that case, he may carry his ram. So in summary, an ordinary mitol teles is not allowed, except if it is firmly fastened, for instance, tied to his tail and his hump, or tied to the shilyasa, to her placenta. What does this mean? Akud is akidas yad v'regel. When they would tie together a hand and a foot of the animal to prevent its escape. This is what akud means. Ki Yitzchak ben Avram, similar to the akidas Yitzchak ben Avram, who was also tied up in this manner. So Yitzchak Avinu was tied up for the Akedah on the Mizbeach, and as Rashi explains to us that one hand was tied to one foot, so it's behind his back, and the other hand tied to the other foot, so that he doesn't stir during the Hakrava. So this was a preparation. Yitzchak ben Avram's hands and feet were tied in this manner. So Akud here as well is referring to that type of tying, that type of binding, where they would take one hand and a foot of the animal and tie it together. Now surely in this case, they only did it to one hand and one foot, otherwise he wouldn't be able to walk. But nevertheless, it is similar to the Akedas Yitzchak, and referring to Akedas Yad V'Regel, a hand to a foot. So that's what Akud means. What does Rugel mean? Continues the Gemara, Rugel Shlo Yaakov Yodei Al Gabi Zroi V'Yiksha. You shouldn't tie the hand of the animal, fold it up, and tie the bottom part to the top part of the hand. So this also is meant to prevent the escape of the animal. So in both of these things, there's a concern that perhaps this thing that he's using to bind, this chain or rope, will slip away, and he might be tempted to carry Shas Rabbim. So once again, according to Yehuda, Akud means that they would tie together a hand to a foot, and Rogel means that they would tie one hand to itself. They would fold it up and tie it up that way. Meisei, we have a brisa which gives us different definitions. What does Akud mean? Shtei yodayim sheraglayim, tying together two hands, or tying together 2 feet. What does Rugel mean? Shelo Yaakov yodei al gabi zroi v'yiksha, you shouldn't fold up the foreleg. Al gabi zroi, you shouldn't fold it up. V'yiksha, and tie it up in that manner. So the Brisa tells us that Akud doesn't mean a hand to a foot, but rather 2 hands to each other, or 2 feet to each other. So how is this compatible with Yehuda's definition? Says the Gemara, Yehuda Amar ki Tana. He follows a different opinion, a Tana found in a different Brisa, who describes Akud indeed as being a hand to a foot. The sign is we learned. Akud is Akedas Yad V'Regel, the tying of a hand to a foot, Oi Shtei Yadayim, or tying together 2 hands, Ushtei Raglayim, or 2 feet. What does Rugel mean? Shelo Yaakov Yodei Al Gabi Zroi, shouldn't fold up the hand of the animal, V'Yikshar, and then tie it in that manner. So indeed this Brisa refers to Akud as a hand to a foot. It says in 1 second, V'Akati Le'Dami, it's still not similar. Bishlem Reisha V'Seifa Nicha, certainly the first part of the Brisa that refers to Akud as a hand tied to the foot, that's compatible with Yehuda's opinion. V'Seifa, the latter part of the Brisa, which tells us that Rugel means the hand tied to itself, folded up and tied in that manner, Nicha, it fits well with Yehuda. But Mitziasa, the middle clause, which also describes Akud as being 2 hands tied to each other, or 2 feet to each other, this is incompatible with Yehuda's opinion. Ella Mitziasa is the Mars Kasha. Says more Ella rather Yehuda Amar ki Tana. Rabbi Yehuda followed the opinion of a different Tana, who defines it according to Rabbi Yehuda's definition. Akud is ka Akedas Yad V'Regel ki Yitzchak ben Avram. Akud is referring to Akedas Yad V'Regel, just like Yitzchak ben Avram, who was tied in that manner. Rugel is Shelo Yaakov Yodei Al Gabi Zroi V'Yikshar. It's referring to not folding up the hand into itself and tying up the hand in that manner. So once again, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Akud means the hand to the foot. Just like the Akedah Sitzak ben Avram, as Rashi describes over here around 20 lines from the bottom, Rashi says that Akud is only referring to this type of tying. Loikari Akud, Yehuda only refers to Akud, Elo Yad V'Regel Ki Yitzchak ben Avram, the Chsiv as it says. Vayakoid, he bound him. As referring to Kafaf, Yoda V'Ragel V'Achirav, he bound both hands and feet behind him. V'Kashar Yad V'Regel. So he tied one hand to one foot behind his back, and the other hand to the other foot of the Nifshat Savar L'Achirav, and his neck became stretched out to his backwards, so that he will. This was the preparation for the akrava, and he did it so he shouldn't shake and stir and interfere with the akrava. So indeed, this is the way Yehuda defines the word akut. Ruggle is referring to tying one hand to itself, meaning folding it up and tying the bottom of the hand to the top part of the hand. Now it's interesting that we refer to Akedah Sitzchak in all the generations, refer to the Mesiras Nefesh of Avraham Yitzchak as Akedah Sitzchak, the binding of Yitzchak, the preparation. So you see, this is a great demonstration of Mesiras Nefesh, the fact that he tied himself up to make himself available and to prepare himself properly for the akrava, so that he doesn't even stir, and he did it knowingly and happily, so that nothing goes wrong during the akrava. And indeed, we live off this chus, this tremendous merit of the Akedah Sitzchak, merely the achana, the preparation for the akrava, even though there was no akrava. But this chus of preparing oneself, availing oneself, approaching the mitzvah with Mesiras Nefesh, that is what Kollel lives on for generations and generations to come. Now it's interesting that Rabbi Yehuda, he interprets the akud as referring to the binding of the hand and the feet, strictly that type of description. He doesn't agree that akud can also be referring to tying hands and feet together. So apparently there's a machlokes here, because once again, what is the concern here? That it might slip off, and he might need to carry this chain or this rope that he's using to tie the animal. So apparently, Rabbi Yehuda holds that only in this case where he's tying the hand and the feet together, there is indeed a concern that the animal might wiggle out of it and might be able to slip off this chain. He might come to carry it. However, if he's tying it, the hands together or the feet together, perhaps Rabbi Yehuda holds there's no concern here, because the animal in that position doesn't have the ability to wiggle out and just shake it off, and there's no concern that he may go ahead and carry in Shusarabim. Continues the Gemara, V'layikshur Gmalim, one should not tie together camels zebazeh and lead the camels in that manner when they're following each other in one line, tied to each other. What's wrong with that? Says, well, my time, what's wrong? Omar Bashi, for a different reason. Mishum de Mechsi, it appears, it gives the impression, Kaman, the Azil Chinke. It appears as if he's going to the marketplace. Now, Chinke literally means a circle, because the people in the marketplace, they circle, they wander around to check out all the merchandise. So the Chinke, the circle, is referring to the marketplace, and it appears that this person who's leading this row of camels that are following him, it appears that he's going to give the impression he's going to the marketplace and to do business on Shabbos. So one shouldn't do that on Shabbos. Avol Machnis, the Mishnah tells us that he may go ahead and lead his camels individually. He may take all the separate ropes, put it into his hands, and the Mishnah tells us, he must make sure not to wrap it around his hands. What's wrong with doing that? Omar Vashi, this is not a Shabbos concern. There's no carrying of a load here, because he's holding on to the reins of the camel. Interesting that although he's carrying a rope in Shusarabim, it's not considered to be a tzah. It's not considered to be a load because it's bottled to the animal, just as the camel may wear it. It's considered to be part of the animal. It's like for instance the garment of a person. So the owner may go ahead and lead the camel, holding this rein, this rope in his hands. It's not considered to be carrying. So there's no Shabbos concern here. However, says Rav Ashi, you know what the concern is? Loishanu. We're discussing the issue here. Loishanu. The issue is only misho'el kilayim, due to concern of the Isser kilayim. Says more. Let's analyze. What does this mean? Kilayim demai. What type of kilayim are we speaking about? Ilay Mikalayim the Adam. We're concerned about Kalayim of Adam, meaning we know that one is not meant to do work or even pull a wagon using two types of animals, a Shiur v'chamor, a ox or a donkey, and a donkey together. That's considered to be Kalai behema. So perhaps there's a concern here as well, because the Adam who's carrying these ropes, so if he wraps them around his hand, he's sort of connecting himself, uniting with these gemalim, and he's not allowed to carry a load with them, not allowed to pull a wagon or anything with them. It's considered to be Kalayim. Says the Gemara, Ilay Mikalayim the Adam. That's the concern, that he is joining with the Gomal, and when he pulls something with them, he does something with them, it's considered to be Kalayim. But tonight we learned in the Mishnah, there's no concern by an Adam. Adam muter kulam. A person may join with other animals to plow, to pull something, to pull a wagon, for instance. Kalayim is only by joining two species of animals together. An Adam can join, and there's no concern there. So what's the problem of Kalayim here? Now Tosfos asks, the Gemara implies perhaps that there would be a Isser Kalayim here because they're doing something together. What are they doing? It's Shabbos. They're not carrying, they're not pulling any loads here. So Tosfos has two answers. Perhaps we're speaking about during the weekdays. The Mishnah, this halacha in the Mishnah is actually referring to weekdays. Inami says another teretz, the fact that they're carrying these ropes, the chavolim, the rein here, that is also considered to be a meshicha. They're pulling something. So therefore, perhaps the Adam with the camel cannot do this together. It's considered to be Kalayim. Says Mar, we know that not to be so. An Adam can join together with an animal and do work without any concern. Ella, rather, we're speaking about Kalayim, the chavolim. We're speaking about Kalayim on account of the ropes themselves, the shanis. If one rope is a wool rope, the other one is made from flax, from linen, there's a concern about Kalayim when he wraps it together around his hand. Because the combination of wool and linen make shanis, make Kalayim. Therefore the Mishnah warns him, tells him to be careful not to wrap these ropes together around his hand. Says Gemara, but that's not either a concern, because they're not really bound together. The ropes are separate entities. V'atanya. But haven't we learned? There's a gerus about Tanai, we learned in the Mishnah. Ha'toikif kifa achas. If one merely does one connection, a single passing of a needle, it's not considered to be a connection with regard to Kalayim. For instance, you have a piece of material, a wool piece of material, and a piece of material of flax, and you take a needle with thread, and you make one pass. You go from one to the other without return, without going back. That's called kifachas. One pass, one connection. That's not considered to be a true connection. You're not binding them together. They don't really join together by this loose stitch. And there's no concern of Kalayim. It's not a chibur. And as Rashi points out, this is Rashi, 4 lines from the bottom. Ha'toikev, big day tzemer pishtim, bet kifa achas. One joins together tzemer pishtim with one tkifa, with one connection. Could go in, for instance, adei machat pam achas, by pushing through a machat just one time. So it's a very loose stitch. Or he only tied one knot. Ein a chibur. It does not constitute a chibur connection. The Kessler says in the pasuk, tzemer pishtim yachdav. Kalayim is only concerned when the tzemer, the wool, and the pishtim and the flax are yachdav. The Torah only prohibits when there's a true connection, a lasting connection, a true bond between these two types of materials. Here we're speaking about merely wrapping the ropes around his hand. That's not considered to be a true chibur. So there's no concern of Kalayim, of shadness in this case. So what is the problem here? Says the Gemara, Kalayim. Indeed, the Mishnah is concerned about Kalayim on account of these ropes. This is what the Mishnah means to say. He must take precaution not to wrap them around his hand, and not to tie them as well. As Rashi says, kricha kshtira, meaning is referring to a double knot, which is a true connection, a true chibur, and constitutes Kalayim and shanis. So the Mishnah, when it says lo yichrach, means he must make sure not to make a double knot and join these two ropes together, which will constitute Kalayim. Continues the Gemara. Okay, so he may lead the camels in this manner by having the ropes in his hand. It's okay. Amar Shmuel, but there's one more thing you need to know. Ubelvad, provided that the end of the rope should not protrude, should not dangle out of his hand a tefach, because in that case it perhaps looks as though he's carrying a rope. It doesn't really appear that it is part of the afser, of the rein, of the gomel, of the camel. Perhaps it gives the impression as though he's carrying a separate rope in his hand. So make sure it doesn't stick out a tefach. Says the Gemara, a tefach? We have a quote from Shmuel which says, up until 2 tefachim it's okay. You must make sure that doesn't stick out 2 tefachim. 1 tefach is okay. Rabbi, Shmuel tefach. Now that we have a contradiction, on one side we have a quote from Shmuel which says a tefach is a problem. We have another quote in the name of Shmuel which says 2 tefachim. So which one do we follow? It says Rabbi, apparently the basic halacha is really a tefach. However, when Shmuel gives us the shiur when the basic halacha is actually tefachim, until tefachim it's okay. So al pitin, 2 tefachim is fine. So why does Shmuel say tefach? Shmuel halacha l'masa asla shmina. Shmuel is coming to teach us how one is meant to conduct himself practically speaking. Make sure that it doesn't protrude a tefach, in order to ensure that one doesn't come to do an isser. Says the Gemara, is that so? So the only concern is not to have it protrude a tefach, and once you do that, it's okay. But a tefach is a problem because it appears as though he's carrying a separate rope in his hand. V'atanya, we have a brisa which seems to tell us that that's not a problem. A person can have the rope dangling out of his hand. Ubelvad, provided that is lifted off the ground, the tefach. Apparently, even if it's dangling out of his hand, it's okay. Says the Gemara, that price is referring to b'chavel, the rope, the beini, the portion of rope which is between his hand and the camel. It's not speaking about the portion of the rope which is sticking out of his hand, the end of the rope, but rather the other side. The Brisa tells us there's actually an additional precaution to take here. One is to make sure that the portion of the rope which is between his hand and the camel doesn't go down, doesn't slope downward all the way to the ground. It's meant to be lifted off the ground, at least a tefach. Because otherwise, perhaps it gives the impression, it appears as though it's not really connected to the camel. An onlooker will see it and say, well, he's carrying a rope. He won't connect the rope with the camel. Therefore, one is meant to keep it above ground. It's meant to be a magbiyah from the karka tefach, so that it's clear and evident that this indeed is the afsa, the rope of the camel, and does not give the appearance of him carrying a load. So in summary, one may carry the ropes in his hand, provided that there's no issue of kalayim, provided that it doesn't protrude, the end doesn't stick out a tefach, and the middle portion of the rope between him and the animal is lifted off the ground, at least a tefach. Okay, let's take a chazor here, a summary of the Mishnah and the Gemara. We have the metalteles, which the Gemara tells us is mutter. This is the cushion that the camel carries under its between the tail strap and the animal, which is meant to prevent injury. So this is only allowed if the metalteles is firmly fastened, tied to his tail as well as his hump, or it is fastened to the placenta. In that case, no concern that he'll wiggle out of it and it will drop to the ground. The Mishnah told us that the animal is not meant to be tied up akud or ragul. What does akud mean? We have 2 opinions. Either means the hand and foot tied together, or means both hands tied together, or both feet tied together. What does ragul mean? It means folding up the hand of the animal and tying it up al gabi zroya to the upper portion of the hand. The Mishnah tells us one should not tie camels to each other and lead them in a row, because it appears it appears as though he's going to the marketplace to sell them. So don't tie up the camels to each other, whether side by side or whether one behind each other. He shouldn't lead a row of camels, and rather he should take the ropes of the individual camels and hold them in his hands. And the Mishnah tells us, he should make sure not to wrap it around his hands. What's wrong with doing that? And more told us, being koirech, wrapping them with a double knot, in a case where the ropes contain different types of materials. One is wool and one is linen. That constitutes kalayim. So one should not do that. Shmuel tells us there's another precaution to be taken here, that the end of the rope shouldn't protrude from his hand a tefach. And the Brisa added another halacha. He must make sure that the rope portion between him and the gamal is lifted off the ground, at least a tefach. Continues the Mishnah. What else? What other items may an animal not wear on Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah? Ein chamor yoytze b'mardas. A donkey shouldn't go out wearing this mat, this saddlecloth, even though it's meant. Many times the owner would leave it on the animal to provide warmth. Since, as we learned, a donkey is very cold. He's chronically cold. Nevertheless, he cannot go out wearing this mardas b'zman she'eino kshur lo, when it is not tied to him. V'lo bezug, an animal can't go out wearing a bell, even though it's stuffed up and not emitting any sound. V'lo b'sulam shebetzavar, an animal may not go out wearing the sulam, a brace that is shaped like a small ladder, attached alongside his neck, and v'lo b'ritzur sheberaglo, nor with a strap around his foot. V'ein hatarnagoylim yoytzin b'chutin. The tarnagoylim, the chickens, may not go out wearing these ribbons. The straps tied to their feet. Male rams cannot go out with this small wagonette, a small wagon underneath their heavy tails. Now, just to take a quick break here, what is the reason for all this? So Rashi gives us the reason here. This is Rashi, around 10 lines from the top of the page. Rashi says, you meant to know that all these things in the Mishnah, the Gemara will explain what they mean. Okay. What is the reason why we prohibit all these types of items being worn by these animals? Because they're items of value, and he's concerned about them being naflu. If they should fall off the animal, there's a concern they might go lift it and carry Shasarabim. So the Mishnah tells us all these types of items may not be worn, may not be tied on the animal on Shabbos when he walks on Shasarabim, for concern that they might get loose, fall down, and might come to carry Shasarabim. That is the owner. Continues the Mishnah, Veina Rechelim, the female sheep cannot go out, Yoitzois Chanunois, Veina Egel, a calf cannot go out, Yoitze Begimoin, with a gimoin, v'loi para, or a cow, ba'ira kupar, outfitted with the skin of a kupar, which is a porcupine. V'loi b'risur shebein karnea, or a para cannot go out with a ribbon tied between its horns. Concludes the Mishnah. Parase shabelez ben Azariah, the cow belonging to Belez ben Azariah, hoyse yotzes, b'risur shebein karnea, would go out to Sarabim, outfitted with this ribbon between its horns. Against the will of the Chachamim. The Gemara will explain to us that this is not to be taken literally. It wasn't actually his para. Continues the Gemara. Okay, let's go back to the halachos of the Mishnah. Number one, the Chamor may not go out wearing this mardas, this mat, bizman she'eino kshur lo, when the mat was not tied to it. My time, says the Gemara, keda'amaron, as Rashi explains, was speaking about the mat which was not tied to the animal Erev Shabbos. Let's take a look at perhaps at Rashi, the first Rashi in the Gemara. Rashi says, Keda'amaron, she'eino kshura b'Erev Shabbos. This was discussed back on Daf Gimel, that unless the mat was tied onto the chamor, way back from Erev Shabbos, it's not allowed. Why? Why is that necessary? Because he hadn't revealed, he hadn't demonstrated, the owner hadn't demonstrated from yesterday, from before Shabbos, that the animal, the chamor, needs this. That is an item of necessity. It's meant to protect him from cold and warm him up. He doesn't need it for an article of clothing. It's not considered to be his malbush. So this is meant to be done way back before Shabbos. He's meant to establish this necessity before Shabbos comes. He can't go ahead and tie it up on Shabbos and say, well, he needs it for his malbush. This is meant to be determined and defined and demonstrated before Shabbos. As we know, many halachas are determined at the onset of Shabbos, Erev, etc. Here too, one's meant to establish its status of malbush before Shabbos comes, and only then can he wear it on Shabbos. Otherwise, when he places it on Shabbos itself, it appears as though it's a load. So this is what the Mishnah means, that the mardas cannot be worn bezman she'einu kshur lo, when it's not tied to him from Erev Shabbos. Continues the Gemara, v'loi bezug, you may not wear a bell, although it is stuffed and not emitting any sound. What's wrong with that? But the Mechsi gives the impression as though it's being taken to the marketplace. Therefore, to avoid that impression, he shouldn't wear a bell. You shouldn't wear this brace along his neck. What is it referring to? A beiloya, a brace which is attached alongside his cheek. What is this done for? When the animal has a wound, to prevent him from turning his head and scraping the wound with his teeth. So to replace this brace, which was shaped as a small sulam, like a small ladder, alongside his neck, alongside his cheek. So that may not be worn in Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos. The strap around his foot, the adile legizra. This was made in a case where the animal would his feet would knock to each other and injure him. So they would place a protective band around his foot at the place of contact, of collision. So this may not be worn on Shabbos. Ve'ina tarnagolim yoitzim b'chutim, nor can the tarnagolim go out with these ribbons. The adili simana, which was done as a simon for identification purposes. That they don't get mixed up with other tarnagolim. This strap which was attached to tarnagolim, the adile, they would tie their feet together. The so don't jump around and break anything, and break mani utensils, kalim. The rams may not go out with this little wagon. So why would they have this wagon? They would place underneath its large, heavy tail, so that the loy lechamtan al yosef, its tail doesn't get injured and scraped on the ground, the slime, on the rocks. So this may not be done on Shabbos. The female sheep may not go out chanunis. What exactly does chanunis mean? We have a few opinions. Yosef Rav Achbar Ula kamed Rav Chizda. Rav Achbar Ula was sitting in front of Rav Chizda. V'Yosef came and he sat and explained the term chanunis in the Mishnah. Misha shegoizes an isa, at the time when they shear the wool off the rechelim, off the female sheep. So from that time and on, they want to prevent the sheep from getting too cold. So what do? Toimnin lo ezek b'shemen, they dip an ezek, some sort of material, like for instance a wad of cotton. So they dip it into oil and make a compress. And they place it on the animal's forehead, so it doesn't get cold. So from the point of shearing until the wool begins growing again, they want to keep it warm, so they place this wad of this ezek b'shem, this compress, on its forehead to keep it warm. Amar Rav Chizda in Cain, Asisa marukva, says Rav Chizda, it can't be that this is what they do to an animal. Asisa marukva, you gave it the treatment of marukva, you gave it royal treatment. Marukva was a wealthy man, and this is something which is done by wealthy people, not meant to be done to sheep. Ella, rather, Yosef Papa Rashmol Kamed Rav Chizda. V'Yosef come and he offered the following interpretation. What does chanunis mean? V'Shosha karas leilit. When the sheep bows to give birth, it's about to give birth. Toimnila shnei zaken shel shemen. So they prepare these two wads dipped in oil. Umanichenla echad al padachta, echad al rechan. They place one on the forehead and one on the womb. Kadesha tischamim, so that it warms up. So this was to help it give birth. Omle of Nachman imkena sisa Yalsa. You gave it the treatment of Yalsa. This is the name of Rav Nachman's wife. This is something meant for a person, not for an animal. Elam Rav Huna eitz echad ish b'chaki hayam. It's referring to something else entirely different. This is a type of wood b'karchi hayam in the cities by the sea. V'chanan shmoy. It's called chanan. What was it used for here? Umivin kesam. They would take a splinter of that type of tree, manichan la b'choit, place it in the nostrils of the sheep. Why? Kadesha is atesh, to facilitate sneezing, and as a result of this vigorous shaking, v'yiplu darni roisha, it would shake out, and the worms in its head will fall out. This was the point and purpose of chanunis, and this is what the Mishnah referred to these splinters of wood placed inside the animal's nostrils. He may not go out with those items on Shabbos. Yachi says, well, why was this specific for female sheep? Yachi cherem nami, even male ones should require this type of treatment. Says because they fight, they gore each other. Male and naflan as a result of their goring each other, the worms get shaken out, and there's no concern there. Continues the Gemara, Shimon Nizira Omar, he said as follows: Kisma de Risma. Chanura is referring to a splinter of a roisem tree, which also was placed in the nostrils, and that is what the Mishnah is referring to. Says the Gemara, okay, Bishleima the Rav Huna. So it all works well according to Rav Huna's interpretation, that the type of wood called chanan was placed in his nostrils. So now we understand the term chanunis in the Mishnah. Hainu Tani Chanura is referring to this chanan tree. El Rabban, however, according to the other interpretations of the other chachamim, my chanunis, well, how does it fit with the word chanunis? Says the Gemara, Da'avdina Lehu Milsa, because this is a procedure, this is something we do for the animal. The Merachmin Alayu, it's an act of compassion, of Rachmanis. So therefore, Chanuna is referring to Chanon, compassion, Rachmanis, mercy. So all these things are types of things that we do to help and assist, acts of compassion towards the animal. Continues the Gemara, the calf may not go out wearing this gimon. My egel b'gimon, what is this referring to? A small mini yoke. And they placed it on the young calf to get it accustomed to wearing a yoke, to being subservient to the owner, to bend himself. This was the chinuch of the calf. Omar Belazar, my mashma, what do we find that gimon, in reference to bending and being subservient, the gimon lishon the meikaf, it's referring to this concept of being bent over, to bend like a fishhook, his head. So you see that Agmoin is referring to being bent over. Here to the point of the Gimoin was to have the egel bent over, and this trained him to accept upon himself the real yoke when he will grow older. So once again, the point of Gimoin is having bent over, as we find in the pasuk. Agmoin is referring to being bent over. Continues the Gemara, v'loi pora bara kupar. So they outfitted this cow with the skin of a porcupine, which was prickly. Why did they do that? Says the Gemara, they placed the porcupine skin on its udders to discourage leeches from coming there and sucking out the milk. The Abdillah, they outfitted this to the para, kihechi, so that the loilim tsui yali, so the leeches won't come and suck out the milk. And finally, the Mishnah tells us a para is not meant to go out with the strap between its horns. Now, what is the purpose of this ritzur? We have a machlekes. So, il Rav, according to Shitas Rav, bein lenoi, whether it's there for ornamental purposes, bein leshamer, whether it's there so that the owner will grab onto this ritzur to control, lead his para. In either case, it's asur. It's considered to be a masur load because for noi, it's not typically worn for noi. For the shamer, to control the animal, it's also not necessary. The para is a very tame type of creature. It just follows in line. The owner walks behind it and leads it in that manner. He doesn't need to actually grab onto the para. So it's considered to be an unnecessary precaution, unnecessary excessive restraint, and it's considered to be a masur. Ilishmo, however, according to Shita Shmuel, it depends. L'noi aser, if the purpose of the ritzur is for decorative purposes, l'noi, it's indeed aser. L'shamer mutar. However, if it's formed in a way where the owner grabs onto it and controls his para in that matter, even though it's not really necessary, he chooses to add an additional measure of control. He's upgrading the shimur, the safeguarding of his para. That's allowed. It's not considered to be a masur. So in summary, let's go back to the Mishnah, to the Gemara. The Mishnah gave us a list of different types of gear, of items, of objects attached to various types of animals, where the animal cannot go out to Shusharam wearing these. As Rashi explains, there's a concern that these things might slip off and be carried by its owner, Shusharam. We began with the Mardas, this mat, which was not tied to the behema, to the Chamar and Erev Shabbos. And here actually the concern is, as Rashi explains, that he needs to demonstrate from before Shabbos that this is necessary for his chamar, and therefore it is deemed to be a malvish, an article of clothing. So once it's tied from Erev Shabbos, and it is tied on Shabbos itself as well, then there's no concern, and he may indeed wear it on Shabbos. The Mishnah told us a bell may not be worn on the animals, around the animal, even if it's not emitting any sound. It appears as though he's heading for the marketplace, and lest the onlooker think that he's going to conduct business on Shabbos. An animal may not go out wearing this sulam, this brace, which appears like a small ladder, placed alongside his neck and his cheek to prevent him from turning his head sideways and irritating his makkah, his wound. The animal may not go out with this protective strap around his foot to prevent the feet from knocking into each other. The chicken may not go out with this chut, this ribbon, which is there for identification purposes, nor with its feet tied together with a ritzua to prevent him from damaging kalim. The ram may not go out with a wagonette under his heavy tail, which prevents it from getting lacerated and injured. The rechelim, the female sheep, may not go out chanunos. We have several interpretations of chanunos. We began with an interpretation that they used to make this compress of oil, place it on its forehead when they sheared it, or the compress that they would place on its forehead and its womb when it was giving birth. The Gemara proceeded with another pshat. It would take this type of wood called chanun, put it up its nostrils to encourage sneezing, to shake out the worms. Or, as Shimon Nazira said, the eitz roisem, this roisem tree, a splinter of this tree, which was placed up its nostrils. A gimoin for the calf was placed to give him training, to get him used to wearing a real yoke. So the gimoin is a small oil, a small yoke. As Gemara said, the gimoin found in the pasuk halokov ka'agoin roisha is referring to the concept of being bent over. This was meant to train him to be bent over. The Gemara told us about the parah, which was outfitted with the porcupine skin to discourage leeches from coming and sucking out its chalav, its milk. And finally, the ritzua tied between the horns of the parah is not allowed, according to Rav. Whether it's there for noi or for shimur is not allowed, according to Shmuel. I agree with noi. However, if it's there to control the parah, then it's mutter. Continues the Gemara. We concluded the Mishnah with this story. Parasai, Sharbelez ben Azariah would go out wearing this ritzua, says the Gemara. This implies that he only had one parah. So his parah walked out to Ravim in this manner. B'chada parah, Havila, he only had one parah in his possession. That's not so. He was very wealthy. V'ha'amar Rav, v'amrila, some say it was Amar Yehuda Rav. Treisar alfi egli, 12,000 caps. Hava ma'aser, Rabbi ben Azar mi'edrei. Kol shata v'shata. Every year, Kol shata v'shata, Rabbi ben Azar would separate Maser Beim, which is one of 10. He would separate how many calves? 12,000 from his herd. Apparently he had very, very many animals. Very many paris. Treisa Elfi Agli, 12,000 calves. Hava Ma'aser ben Azar mi'edrei. He would separate from Maser Beim mi'edrei, from his herd, Kol shata v'shata, every year. So apparently he had more than just a single parah. Says more indeed, the Tana we learned in the Rice, it wasn't actually even his. He would never have defied the halacha of the Mishnah, the halacha of the Chachamim. However, it was his neighbors. It belonged to his neighbor. So why then do we attribute it to him? We say, his parah went out to Sram wearing the ritzur. It wasn't even his. It was his neighbor's. The answer is due to the fact that he didn't protest. He wasn't meicha against the conduct of his neighbor. Nikris al Shmai, we attribute to him, he's held accountable for it. Continues the Gemara on this subject, that one is accountable and responsible for the action of others which are under his influence. Continues the Gemara, Rav, Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Yechanan, Rabbi Chaviva. So these group of Chachamim masnuli taught us the following concept. Now the Gemara in an aside tells us here, the Kuli say the Moed, you should know in the entire say the Moed, whenever we have the listing of these Chachamim, Kol ki hayzuga, Chalufi Rabbi Yechanan, Umayla Rabbi Yonasan. Some take out Rabbi Yechanan and replace it with Rabbi Yonasan. So what do they teach us? This group of Chachamim, Kol mi she'efshar limchos anshe beisai, one who has the ability to be meicha, to protest the misdeeds of anshe beisai, the members of his household. He wields influence on them, veloi micha, and refrains from doing so, from exercising his control and influence. Nitfas al anshe beisai, he's held accountable for the misdeeds of his family, of the members of his household. Because the fact that he didn't influence them, the fact that he didn't protest, it makes him responsible. One who occupies a more prominent level of position, and he wields influence on the members of his city, nitfas al sheiroi. So if he doesn't protest the misdeeds of the inhabitants of his city, where he can do so, he wields influence on them. So he refrains to do so, he's responsible, he's held accountable for their misdeeds. What if he occupies even a greater position of authority? For instance, Rashi says, 3 lines from the bottom, one who has influence on the entire world, B'chol Yisrael, on the entire nation, Kegoin Melech, a king Venasi, he has the ability to be Meicha, to protest. They fear him. They adhere to his instructions. So if one does not exercise his influence properly, Nitfas al Kollel kuloi, he's held accountable for all the misdeeds of the whole world, of all Klal Yisrael. Omar Papa. Those from the head of the exile, who indeed wielded great influence, Nitfasu al Kuli Alma, they held accountable for the misdeeds of the whole world, of all of Klal Yisrael. Kiyodam Chanina, just as Chanina taught us, based on the pasuk, what does it mean? Hashem b'mishpat yavai. Hashem will come in judgment. Im ziknei ama v'sarv. He will come with judgment with the ziknei ama, the elders of his nation, v'sarv, and the ministers, the officers who committed misdeeds. What does it mean? Hashem b'mishpat yavai. Im ziknei ama. Hashem will bring judgment with the ziknei ama. What did they do wrong? Im sarim chatu. If they sarim committed averos, zikenim machatu. What did the elders do wrong? Why are they responsible? Ella ema. But read as follows, interpret as follows. Al zikenim, Hashem will bring judgment to the zikenim shaloi michu b'sarim, because they did not protest, they did not wield their influence on the sarim, on the officers, to prevent them from doing averos. They did not instruct them properly, and therefore they're held accountable for the misdeeds that they didn't even do themselves. So we see the tremendous chiyuv, the responsibility of one to wield his influence properly, protest, to be meicha, to try to direct those that are within the realm of his influence. Okay, time for a brief chazara, today's daf. We began with the rechelim, the female sheep that may go out in Rishus Harabim when they are kvulois or kvunois. Kvulois is referring to their tails being tied down, and kovel denotes tied up and unproductive. Kvunois means their wool is wrapped up to ensure its cleanliness. Regarding the izim that go out with their udders tied up with a pouch fastened to their udders, we have 4 shitas. We have the Tanakama says it's always permitted. We have Rabbi Yossi says it's never permitted. Rabbi Yehuda says, well, if it's dearly yavish, if it's meant to terminate the flow of milk, to stop the production of milk, that's mutter. Rabbi Yehuda says that is also not allowed on account of gzeira, that if that's allowed, perhaps one will go ahead and do it, even lechaliv, to collect the dripping milk, which is asur. We proceeded with the next Mishnah regarding metoteles, a cushion that is only allowed on the camel if it is properly fastened to his tail and his hump, or to its placenta. A animal may not go out akud, tied up. We have 3 pshatim on akud, either a hand to a foot, or both hands tied together, both feet tied together. We have another shita which says that akud can be referring to either one of these. Both hands tied together, both feet tied together, or a hand tied to a foot. He may not go out ruggle, which means the hand folded and tied into itself. One should not tie together camels and lead them in that manner, because it appears it's going to the marketplace. But he can place individual ropes into his hands as long as he doesn't tie them together with a double knot, make kalayim. He wants to make sure that the end of the rope doesn't protrude a tefach, and make sure that the portion between his hand and the camel is lifted off the ground, at least a tefach. The next Mishnah gave us a number of other items which an animal may not wear on Shabbos. For instance, the chamor wearing the mardas, if it was not tied on the animal from Erev Shabbos. An animal should not go out with a zug, with a bell, which appears as though he's going to the marketplace. An animal should not go out with this sulam, this brace, ritzua, this protective band around its foot. The tarnagolim with these ribbons or their straps. The calf, the ram with this agola, with this wagonette underneath its tail. The female sheep with the chanunos, either these compresses or the splinters of wood in its nostrils. The calf with these little yoke. The cow outfitted with the porcupine skin, and finally the cow with the ribbon between its horns. And the Gemara concluded that just as one is responsible for his own actions, one is meant to wield a positive influence on others as well.